Okay, abusia Akwatia by elections abusia yede abato ni nyina aba na wie afei de electoral commission ankasa aba abonten aba be declare lawyer Badiako Bedu as MP elect in Akwatia enye asam keto akwa ntino momiembo nremu ewo electoral commission akache na chese enko tie de wa na chese o declare lawyer Badiako Bedu as MP elector enye asam keto akwa momienko na yenkonko tie on subscribe like na share ma afofron so ensa into me enkabi aha Ghana Politics Avenue so madam say
here are the vote cast. Solomon Asumedu had 15,235 votes. Bernard Badiako Bedu of NDC had 18,199. Ousu Patrick LPG had 82 votes. Pete Asumedu Solomon NPP had 15,235. Bernard Badiako Bedu NDC had 18,199. Ousu Patrick LPG had 82 votes. Total valid votes 33,516. Total rejected ballots 303. Total vote casts 33,819. With the figures mentioned so far, Director, with your permission, I, Eric Osu Jemfi, the returning officer of Akwatia Constituency, declare Bernard Badiako as the parliamentary candidate elect, MP elect for Akwatia constituency. Thank you very much.
Workability of that strategy depends on the ability to communicate or to articulate those strategies very well to your constituents for them to vote for you. That is very important. Now, observing from the day that this election was dated, observing the discourse, the rhetoric, the political, gimmicking and the political rhetoric that is going through, summatively, I can say that they revolve around development and also employment.
Right.
Now, when you look at the demographics, in Akwatia West, my good brother Musa Dankwa, in his analysis or in his data, he's made us know that the voting population in Akwatia are largely the youth. And so issues of development are very important. If you are a political party and you want to go into an election in an area where you have teeming youth who are going to form the basis of your electorate, and you know that what they need is employment and development, certainly you would create or you construct your campaign messages around these areas. So I'm not surprised that the NDC is talking about development because their government is in power. It's very important for them to look at, to make those, to make those comments. But what is quite frightening is the way they are framing the entire discourse around development. In every democracy, the development must be proportionate.
Right.
When you are elected into an office, you are not a president for, or you are not a leader, or you are not a government for some section of Ghanaians against others. And so if you are going to, put across an all-inclusive communication centered on development, you must be very circumspect of the kind of things that you are going to say, because the things that you are going to say, for us as academics, we will certainly analyze it and be able to tell whether it augur well for our democracy, for our national cohesion, for our national unity, national development, etc. And from what we are seeing from the discourse that is coming from the political parties, most especially the NDC, leading figures, leading members of the party, like Almighty, Collins Dowda, saying that if you don't vote for NDC,
if he were the president,
of course. So I'm paraphrasing to say that if you don't vote for the NDC, it means there's not going to be development for Akwatia, and that is so, unfortunate for a party to be making such statement. But the question I always want to ask, if you look at the electoral history of Akwatia entirely, from 1992 up to today, you see that the seat has been alternating between the NDC and the NPP. And you ask yourself, what has been the level of development at Akwatia now, since both parties have had the opportunity of serving their people, both in government and in opposition?
Right.
What have they been able to do? So clearly you see that the issues, the issues critically is not just about development. The use of development in this kind of political discourse can be said to be, a sort of decoy or a sort of ploy in order to push people to win, to get their vote.
Okay.
But of course, it's all part of the political theater. It's all part of the political discursive theater for politicians to tell electorate what they want to hear or what can get them, the vote. But we must be very careful about some of the things we say, because at the end of Akwatia, we have a nation to build. We have a country to develop. So we must be very careful in order to instill hope in Ghanaians, to know that, the NDC, given the opportunity to rule, would be able to deliver, a nationwide development that cut across from Akwatia to Asen Manso, from Asen Manso to, Esikuma, from Esikuma to Wodomiabra. Every corner, every hamlet in this country would have its share of development, whether they voted for NDC or they did not vote for the NDC, because the resources that are being used for this development is not an NDC resources, but they are national resources. Yeah.
Right. Now, talking about development still, a few days ago, I saw footages of road construction ongoing in the constituency.
Yeah.
And if there's anything the 2024 general election taught me,
it's very good,
is that a Ghanaian voter has become smarter. So with such a project ongoing, does it have any impact on voter decision?
I'm absolutely happy, about the context in which you created for my response.
Right.
So you see that over the years, the Ghanaian voter has become self-aware, self-educated, and Ghanaian voter is able to tell which one is theatric and which one is genuine.
Right.
And if there is anything the NDC has to learn, they have to learn from the NPP. The NPP just exited power, barely a year, about 8 months ago. And they did similar things, yet they lost the election. In places you never imagine that the NPP will lose the elections, but they did. They lost the election. So I don't think that construction of roads would have any impact whatsoever, on the outcome. I don't think so, because you see, Ghanaian voters have already made up their minds. You understand? You can have more than 70% of the entire voters having political stands already. These number are for NDC, this are for NPP. Whatever you do to them, they will certainly vote for NPP or NDC. Even if you put, a goat under the flag of the NDC or the NPP, they will certainly vote along
based
those.
on political affiliations.
They will do that. So it doesn't really matter. And when you even come to the discourse about development, I find it interesting comparing the candidates.
Okay.
One is an established lawyer, that is for the NDC, and the other one is also an established businessman. Now, if you look at the checks that we have done, you could see that the NPP's candidate is a local business person who has established a lot of businesses in Akwatia. I'm told he's a miner. He has established a lot of businesses in Akwatia. A lot of the young guys, are employed. I listened to one of your interview with Ibrahim, and he interviewed some youth of Akwatia right here in Akwatia, and they were saying that they are miners and they are involved in small scale, that's galamsey kind of thing. So the youth are looking forward for a leader who will be able to give them the jobs that they are doing. I think this is the kind of rhetoric both NDC and NPP should engage in. How are you going to give them the jobs? One is already on the field in business, creating jobs for people to be doing. And the other one is also a lawyer, okay, hopefully representing his people in court, fighting for their rights, ensuring justice for the people of Akwatia, etc., etc. But if the conversation is about jobs, then I think that the NPP's candidate is in a better position, better placed in terms of job creation, for the people of Akwatia than the NDC.
Now, I know you want to come in, but briefly, because you touched on mining and who Asumedu is in terms of a businessman, this government has been up to a lot. We saw yesterday they commissioned the new DVLA office. A few days ago, the lands minister had given the instruction for LI 2462 to be scrapped, which means that people will not be able to mine in forest reserves.
That's good.
Do you think such an indication or such a directive will have a way, to impact this voting pattern in any way? If it sends any signal, especially for the people that are employed through mining?
First of all, I would want to commend the government for taking this bold decision.
Right.
Because our forest reserves must be protected, for posterity to come and do it. Now let's look at the actual effect of this law on the people. Now, there are quite a lot of youth in these mining areas whose livelihood depends on mining.
Right.
And these are the realities on the ground. You understand? Let's forget that. The law is good, but let's look at the realities, and it is the realities that is going to solve the problems. If we don't deal with the realities and then deal with the bigger problem, we don't deal with the fundamental problem, and then start dealing with the bigger problems, it will be flouted. The laws would be flouted.
Right.
So it is important for government to continue engaging with these areas, with these mining areas, continue engaging with the youth, to give them alternative livelihoods, and to also boost security in these areas, so that as government is providing alternative livelihoods, for example, farming is a very lucrative business today. Agro farming, if it is done well, government must be able, and most of these areas are actually farming areas.
Akwatia
They are largely farming areas, but the farming is so unattractive to the
youth.
They
make a lot more money from the mining.
But in actual fact, if we are going to educate them or invest more in agriculture will be more sustainable a livelihood than the mine. Because these miners, there are times that everything becomes dry. When you go to these mining areas, there are seasons that everything becomes dry, and they even begin to sell the little property that they have been able to acquire within that period of the mining. So it means that the mining itself is unsustainable.
Okay.
It's an unsustainable livelihood. So if government is going to be able to train them, encourage them to go into agriculture, for example, fertile lands all there. If government is going to encourage them to go into agriculture, that gives them a more sustainable livelihood than the mining.
Okay.
And that is what we are failing as a country to do.
But I'm also looking at the timing of this directive. Was it an appropriate time, looking at the political season in which we are?
Okay, so if you match it with the Akwatia by-election, I can say that the timing is wrong. You understand? Because you are going into an election in an area whose livelihood is on mining.
Right.
And then you pass a law that bans mining in these areas. Okay? Now you give your opponent ammunition to campaign with. They go back to the people and tell you that this government told you that when you come, we will allow you to mine. And now they have come, they are taking away your source of livelihood. You understand? And so people's source of livelihood become threatened. And then they will
campaign message.
becomes a campaign message, and they will certainly vote against you.
Okay.
And if the NPP has used that in their campaign, I'm sure that we'll see the result at the end of the polls.
Okay.
On the bit about LI 2462 and the timing of it, I'm trying to draw the correlation because, as far as we do know, LI 2462 really does apply to granting licenses to companies that mine in our forests. And what we see with a small scale is that right now we're seeing a lot more illegal people engaging in that. So, I mean, how does the LI 2462 directly impact the activities of these individuals in question who largely do the operations on a small scale?
So it's what I said. As a country, we seem to be so concerned about the macro problems and leave the micro problems. And I think that if we are able to deal or solve the micro problems, we are indirectly solving the macro problems. So if you look at this small-scale miners, most of them are illegally into the forest reserves.
Exactly.
As for the established mining companies, because there are laws that guides and governs or controls or manage their activities, they are somehow, even if they do it, they are somehow careful because they know that if they do it, their licenses could be withdrawn or there will be sanctions against them. Yes. But for the small-scale miners who nicodemously go into these forests, spend days, months, nobody even knows about them, and most of them are indigenous of the towns. So they even know the places more than you, the national security or whatever people who are coming from Accra to come and fight them. And so I strongly believe that government must continue to engage with the local people, must continue to train them, give them alternative sources of livelihoods. I look at Akwatia. I am a bit related. I have some families in Akwatia, in the Zongo. And I can tell you that since a kid, you understand where we knew Akwatia. Akwatia is still as it is. The roads are not tarred, development very, and this is a very vibrant town where Ghana, we boast of diamonds. But what is there? Nothing.
Just like many other mining communities.
Just as many other mining communities, even Almighty Obuasi.
Absolutely.
And so as a country, there must be a national discourse, a national conversation on how to develop these countries. But because I can tell you, we are sitting on a time bomb. Absolutely. We are sitting on a time bomb. The youth of this country need jobs. And there's the need for us to sit down and have a conversation on how to have a long-term plan, livelihood for the youth of this country, so that it reduces crime in itself. We need to educate, put up a lot of education facilities. How many schools do you have in Akwatia? How many schools do you have in Akwatia? How many do you have in Obuasi? They are not there. The roads are not there. How many industries do you have? we need to also industrialize the mining companies. I believe that if we are able to industrialize the mining companies, the indigents of these towns would have jobs to do. So imagine if we've industrialized Obuasi, where there are a lot of gold, there's a gold refinery, big gold refinery that refines the gold from Obuasi into many other ornaments. A lot of the people are going to get jobs to do. People wouldn't have.
Okay, abusuawe ne ensema ekoso ewo political highway ne so eye lawyer Badiako bedu na electoral commission declare na say ono eye MP elect in eye Akwatia enye asem keto akra ebeda masesa moje pene kokoti sa ensemwe de MI aha Ghana Politics Avenue so medamase